Hello there, you're listening to the Box Office Show. I'm Ryan Hill.
And I'm Dylan Johnson. Today we're going to be talking about the box office numbers from last weekend and our box office predictions for this upcoming weekend.
We'll also be continuing our coverage of the copious cornucopia of Coppola's Kino creations. This time, we will tackle the ruin of Coppola, having already documented his rise and reign. And we will do that by discussing three of his post-70s films, One from the Heart, Bram Stoker's Dracula, and Youth Without Youth.
We don't have any major news this week. We'll probably have quite a bit next week. So we're just going to go straight into the box office breakdown for September 20th to the 22nd. Coming in first, Beetlejuice with 25.9 million.
Indeed, it remained on top, beating out Transformers 1 with 24.6 million, just barely, keeping it out of the top spot.
After that was Speak No Evil, the James McAvoy horror movie with 5.7 million.
Never Let Go with 4.4 million.
Deadpool and Wolverine still in the top 5 with 3.8 million.
The Substance, 3 million in its debut.
Am I Racist, 2.4 million.
Reagan, 1.6 million.
Jungkook, I Am Still, 1.4 million.
Alien Romulus rounding out the top 10, 1.3 million. Now, for this weekend, the 27th of September to the 29th of September, we have, at long last, Megalopolis, crowning the month of Coppola. Of course, we will be talking about it in our next episode. But what do you think it will make? Are the people of America, are the people of the world as excited for Megalopolis as we are?
What's crazy is I've seen this movie advertised maybe more than almost any other movie coming out this year, close to it. Like, the advertising campaign on this is aggressive. The trailer is just playing over and over again everywhere I go. But I haven't seen like a lot of advertising or promotion in terms of other than Coppola going out and doing his interviews. I haven't seen a lot of the actors going out and doing interviews about Megalopolis or promoting it in a lot of ways. So I don't think it's going to do very well. I don't think people are going to pull up for Coppola. I think it's unclear what it is going to be. And I think the negative reviews are going to hamper its box office performance. I'm saying less than 10 million.
Okay, you're a non-believer.
Yeah.
I'm going over 100 million.
There's no fucking way it makes back its budget in the first weekend. I think it's going to flop super hard, dude. $130 million into this movie.
Yeah, undoubtedly it'll be a huge flop, but well,
this just keeps happening. I honestly, I respect the hustle for Coppola. Every 10 years, he puts up his entire net worth to make a movie or two, and it flops, and then he goes into hiding for another 10 years, and then he does it again. And I think this is just, like, I mean, think about it. In the 80s, he had The Outsiders and One from the Heart and a couple of the smaller films, and they all flopped. Except I think The Outsiders was a bit popular.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about his run and his.
It's just poor guy.
Financial woes.
Poor guy.
But I mean, he wanted to do this again. It was all building up towards this dream project. So yeah, he'll be happy with it, I think, even if no one is going to see it. The Wild Robot is also coming out this weekend. What do you think it'll get?
I'm giving it 15 million.
15. Interesting. I'll go higher than that, over 25 mil.
Damn.
Yeah. I mean, we saw Transformers 1, which obviously is a bigger property and everything, but I think Wild Robot can contend with that. So
we'll see.
Indeed. But now let's jump into our biography of Francis Ford Coppola, this time going over his post-70s years and his career. So he finally, after Apocalypse Now, after recovering from that whole ordeal, he decided to make his first film under the Zoetrope Studios banner, One from the Heart. And this was not an easy one to get off the ground. He initially was going to have it be funded by MGM. They were going to be producing it, but he didn't like that they had reduced the budget down to basically 2 million. He wanted more for it. So he bought the rights himself to be able to produce it. He was still going to have MGM distribute it, but then that fell through. Paramount came on board. Paramount, his partner from the Godfather films, then they fell through, and right before release day too. So then he finally got Columbia Pictures on board to help release it. But by that point, the budget had ballooned to 26 million. And again, this is all under his studio. It's all his funding going into it. And did the gamble pay off? Just like it did with Apocalypse Now? It did not. It bombed. Dylan, I want you to guess how much money it made in its opening.
In its opening weekend or in total?
Opening weekend.
$400,000.
And then how about total?
Total, I'm going to give it $2.3 million.
Okay. It made $600,000.
Okay, better than what I said.
Total.
Oh, no!
$636,000 in its entirety.
Oh, my
That's
God.
crazy.
On a $26 million budget. That is devastating.
Just brutal. I mean, we'll see, like, from the ratio, whether Megalopolis will be a bigger flop than that, but that's going to be hard to beat. That's pretty incredible.
Speaking of ratio, he just got fucking ratioed for this, man. That's crazy.
So, yeah, not great. And this led to him having to sell the 23-acre lot that he had just finally gotten all put together. And then he had to work prolifically throughout the 80s, taking on all these studio projects and things that he wasn't, entirely passionate about in order to pay off these debts. So, yeah, many of his 80s flicks were out of necessity and not out of passion. But that doesn't mean they were all, forgotten. The Outsiders in 1983, his very next follow-up, of course, was a big adaptation of a very popular novel, and its legacy at this point is most well established for having launched many young stars that would go on to define the 80s and thereafter. So he did well with that one. And then all the rest of these films, not so much. I'm going to just read them out. Dylan, I want you to answer whether or not you've A, seen them, and then B, if you've heard of them before doing the month of Coppola.
Okay.
Rumblefish.
No to both.
Dang. This was also an adaptation of a book written by the same author of The Outsiders, and they filmed it in tandem with The Outsiders, reusing a lot of the same cast. The Outsiders was, in fact, a financial success. Rumblefish was not. So he went from we're back to immediately not doing well commercially. The Cotton Club in 1984.
No to both.
Peggy Sue Got Married in 1986.
No to both.
The Garden of Stone in 1987.
No to both.
Tucker, the Man and His Dream in 1988.
I have heard of this one because Tucker is played by Jeff Bridges, and I love Jeff Bridges. Yes. That is the only reason I know it.
And New York Stories, 1989.
I've heard of this one, but it's because it's an anthology that Scorsese also contributed to. I know it because of Scorsese, not because of Coppola.
Exactly. So yeah, that's a snapshot of his run in the 80s. Again, some of these films, Cotton Club, yeah, I never heard of it. Garden of Stone, not once. That's crazy. Again, one of our
a whole decade of
well-known, renowned filmmakers of all time. Again, directing in the 70s alone, 2 to 3 all-time classics. And we don't even know some of the films in the 80s. That's how little of an imprint it made.
I mean, I didn't even know One from the Heart before we did this episode. And I honestly didn't know Tucker, the Man in His Dream until maybe a couple months ago, just on a Jeff Bridges binge. I heard about it. That was it, just because of Jeff Bridges. So other than that, the only Coppola movie I would have known prior to a couple months ago was The Outsiders from the 80s. So I really thought he just took a huge gap after Apocalypse Now and didn't really bounce back until Godfather 3 and Dracula in the 90s. So, yeah, the 80s Coppola movies it was a rough time, man. Rough time for him.
For sure.
Poor guy.
So yeah, he did return to the Godfather franchise again, since all of those films in the '80s, with the exception of Peggy Sue Got Married, all of them were financial flops, pretty much, uh, or at least they just didn't make more than the budget. I think Tucker, the Man in His Dream, got close to recouping the budget, but not even that. So he needed to go back to the franchise he spawned, Godfather, in 1990, and he did get financial success. It was able to make back its budget and turn a profit. Also got some critical success with Best Picture and Best Director nominations, which would be the last time that he would be nominated for any Academy Award.
Mhm.
And although the reputation of the film, of course, is not very strong in comparison to the previous two Godfather films, it just absolutely pales. But he was able to get back some goodwill here.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the third Godfather movie?
I have not.
Me neither.
I'm
I
saving that
have.
for you. Haven't either.
I have
Ooh, that's crazy.
avoided it very carefully. I own it on DVD. I have like a box set of the three of them, so I've avoided it very, very carefully. And I'm waiting until we do a Godfather episode for that to be the moment I watch it, because I have
Me
no
too.
interest in really seeing it. Because the first two are perfect, and I've heard so many bad things about the third one. I don't have an interest in seeing it, especially because the second one, it ends on a note that is like it is closed. Like you can, the first one does that too. Like you could watch the first one and never watch the other two, or you could watch the first two and never watch the third one. So what's even the point, you know?
Yeah. Until he comes back with Godfather Part 4.
That
After
would go so
Megalopolis.
hard, dude. I would love if he did that. To reel from the pain of Megalopolis flopping. If he made Godfather Part 4 34 years later,
That'd be crazy.
that shit would go so hard, dude. I would be first in line. It'd be so funny. Old ass Al Pacino.
He's still going. De Niro's still going. You know, they just popped out kids, the both
Well, you
of
can't
them, in
have
the
De
past 5 years.
Niro
They're still out
because De
here.
Niro plays young Vito Corleone,
You know,
and he is not even close to being young anymore.
that's true. I mean, again, I don't know how much you know of Godfather Part 3 or what the original title was, but I don't know how they're bringing back Al Pacino either, but we'll see. We'll see what they can do. Again, he's in his weird phase, as we'll talk about later on. He'll just do whatever. He'll be like, it's all a fever dream. It's a multiverse film, young and old coming together. So he'll make it work.
It's the Avengers of the Godfather universe.
Yeah.
They do CGI to bring back James Caan and
Oh
Robert
God,
Duvall.
Jesus. So in after Godfather Part 3, he did Dracula as his next big studio feature, and then once again, a big resounding financial success. It was the ninth highest
Nice.
grossing movie of the year, made 215 million against a 40 million budget. So man was back in the good graces of Hollywood with
Amen.
audiences. So he done it. I mean, that one won a couple Academy Awards for like the technical stuff, but again, he was feeling the love all around. And in 1996, he followed it up with Jack, a collaboration with Robin Williams about a 10-year-old boy who ages, the cells in his body age so rapidly he appears as a 40-year-old man. Have you ever seen this film?
No, but there's a plot line that I can imagine they could run with that is very dangerous.
Yeah. Again, I have not seen it either. I have no idea
It just
what
sounds like
goes
a.
on
I
in that
mean,
film,
I mean, it's
but
the exact same idea as Big, right? But
it
instead of Tom
literally
Hanks, it's
is.
Robin Williams.
Yeah. So it did not get quite as good reception as Big. It was panned by critics, and it was only a moderate financial success. Made 78 million against a $45 million budget, so not terrible, but not a great follow up to Dracula. And then The Rainmaker in 1997, it made sort of exactly its budget back, which was around 40 million, and did get some nods, I believe, at the Academy Awards, or at least Golden Globes, I think. Not for him, but for the movie itself. But then after that point, he goes into a soft retirement, takes a hiatus. He wants to move away from making what he calls factory films, getting out of the studio system. And then he insisted that he wanted to be like a student again, a film student, just trying to experiment and figure out what film means. And during that time, that hiatus, he revisited his old films and made new cuts. This is when Apocalypse Now, Redux, came out in 2001. He did the same with The Outsiders, that version being called Outsiders the Complete Novel, released in 2005, before finally returning after a 10-year hiatus with Youth Without Youth, which we will be talking about in today's episode. It was another self-funded American Zoetrope project that bombed.
Bombed.
And then followed up with two more films, Tetro and Twix, both of which were much smaller in scale. I think they got limited releases. I don't even know if Twixt got a theatrical release. I think that might have been just like a DVD type thing. So yeah, again, he was definitely carrying on with his idea of, I don't care about being this big professional director anymore. I just want to make these films, make my personal projects, put them out, but he's not caring too much about whether they're massive successes. So that's where we leave off with his career until we will pick back up next time and discuss the road to Megalopolis. But now we will talk about some selected films from his post-70s era. We got one film from the 80s, one from the 90s, and one from the 2000s. And we will kick it off with his Apocalypse Now follow-up, the one from the heart, which is, again, notorious as being the one that practically bankrupted him and his studio. So it's got a big legacy. Not much for the film itself, but we will get to decide whether or not it should have been treated as a masterpiece or a dud. So One from the Heart, again, you saying it is new on your radar from the month of Coppola.
Indeed.
What are your general impressions?
It's terrible. I mean, oh my God.
Oh!
It is. It reminds me a lot of New York, New York by Scorsese in the sense that these are both two filmmakers who are going above and beyond to make these big, epic, romantic films with these huge set pieces that are a love letter to old Hollywood and should be fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But the characters are so wildly unlikable that I don't give a fuck. I don't think they should be together. I don't care if they end up together.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's stupid. We're getting into spoilers now. I think it's stupid that they do end up together.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care about the respective affairs they have apart from each other on their break, I guess. I just don't give a shit. I don't give a fuck. That being said, though, as a filmmaker, he still got it. I mean, he's still got it. It looks great. He still got it. The man loves crossfades so much that he's layering sets within sets to give the illusion of a crossfade in the frame without actually doing it. That's how much he loves crossfades. And it works. The control of the lighting, there's only a few times where I thought the lighting didn't look good because it would cross cut between the two characters to just look like different scenes that were going on. But overall, looks fantastic. The production design is insane on the Zoetrope Studios sound stages.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it looks fantastic. It was built to be fantastic. I just think the story got away from him here. I think it wasn't written very well to begin with. I think it wasn't performed very well because of how it was written. Because all the actors in here are great actors. I just think I don't know. I just don't think he had control over what was going on in the way that he wanted to. And even so, I don't think he was able to reel it in the editing room in the same way that he was able to do so in Apocalypse Now, where even that ran away from him a little bit, but he still brought it all in together in the editing room and just made something masterful. That just didn't happen with One from the Heart. He got lucky. This time he didn't. I don't know. Something changed him in the jungle, and he's a different man now. Still loves crossfades. Still loves people just fucking being naked, but just can't bring it all together into a story that makes me give a shit. Just can't do it. But looks fantastic. That is going to be a through line for all three of these movies. It looks fantastic.
Yeah, again, the visual mastery that this guy has, his eye, is fantastic. It's just, in this one, especially compared to, I mean, all those other ones, they're great. I agree with you there. But this one is just on another level. It's so good. is so beautiful. And I think a lot of that is due to him being able to have so much control. Again, all this seems like it's on soundstage stuff. So the whole world he was able to control and build up. And I think that makes for fantastic visuals. The DP from Apocalypse Now, Vittorio Storaro, is back, and he has Ronald Victor Garcia helping him as well. So shout out to them because, yeah, the cinematography was gorgeous. And again, just the way that Coppola is able to compose those visuals and then stack the visuals together, cut between them. I mean, all that stuff is truly sensational. Yeah, he's the king of the overlay, the cross dissolve, and goes crazy for it. Um, and then I think in this film in particular, there's a lot of just fun sequences. He's able to use the vibrancy and fantasy of this like larger than life musical esque, which we'll talk about soon, of like the musical components and whether that clicked for you or not. But able to tap into the whimsy of all that to journey just fun, entertaining, engaging camera maneuvers and movements and shots. The stuff in the window, like she's a window dresser, and we just go back and forth looking at the her suitor and then going back to her and seeing the reflections of the lights in that window. So we're still able to see them, but seeing all the reflections there. I think that stuff was fantastic. The scene that really stood out, which I wish they would have leaned into even more as far as the musical elements, but the piano song into the dance sequence,
The
that
tango?
then goes into the Bora Bora sequence. Yeah,
Yeah, dude, the tango's great.
it was fantastic. It was beautiful. Like it was charming as well. The little
Yeah.
song that
It
they
made
had
me
and the back
like
and forth.
her a little bit, even
Yeah,
though
they
I still
had
didn't really care about her. It made me like her a little bit, which is saying a lot because this is like an hour and 10 minutes in the movie and I just don't give a fuck.
True. But yeah, it was charming. Like you actually enjoyed seeing that play out. And then, yeah, the tango itself, which is well choreographed. It was nice. And then again, heading into that like transition there of them being in Bora Bora and everything, like that stood out as a great sequence. I think the big dance number they had too was fun. It
With all the Vegas dancers and
livened things
stuff.
up. Yeah. And then they
I
crane
thought it
up
was
and
I thought it
then
was
you see
funny when they
the,
pass each other and they just kind of wave and keep walking. And I was like, okay, maybe I can get on board with like this is them saying goodbye. But then they do like the pulling pulling the blanket off. What is it? Pulling the
rug out from under
tablecloth,
you.
pulling the rug
Oh,
out from under. Thank you. They do that, the pulling the rug out from under you, and he like changes his mind, Hank, and he decides he needs to be with Franny for whatever fucking reason. I guess he loves her. I don't even know. I mean, they're supposed to have been together for 5 years, but there's been no buildup of their relationship, really. Even the first scene doesn't really do a good job of defining their relationship or that they've been together for 5 years. Like, I just don't buy it or believe it or care.
there's no chemistry there. I wrote because
Yeah,
I
done.
had some notes because I watched it like earlier in the week. So I'm like, let me write down some notes so I can remember what I thought of the film as it comes on later. And the first thing I said, I was like, "Ooh, love the sultry jazz music in the credit sequence," which again, that looked great. It was beautiful. Love
Yeah,
that.
awesome.
And then I was like, I'm midway through the first scene. I don't think they have chemistry. I was like, is this intentional because they're on the outs? But you would still think they'd have a spark there or something.
Yeah,
So yeah, from the get go, it was like, okay, this does not
yeah.
seem to be working. We're supposed to believe that, yeah, there was at one point love and passion between these people that for
New York,
five
New
years
York
have
is
been
the
together.
exact same way, dude. Robert De Niro and Liza Minnelli have no chemistry. It's a bad combination.
Yeah,
Robert De Niro is just not. He's just an asshole. He's not a romantic lead. I don't think I've ever seen Robert De Niro be a romantic lead in anything.
yeah,
He's really good in comedies. He's really good in dramas. He's just not a romantic lead. And I think the same can be said for Frederick Forrest here. I just don't think he was meant to be a
tragic.
romantic lead. But also, to his credit, a lot of the blame can also be shared with the writing, where they just make him such an asshole
I
from
mean,
the
yeah, he's
start.
a total schmuck in it. And yeah, it wasn't believable the chemistry between the two. I think yeah, there were a lot of moments where because we seen him. I mean, Coppola loves him. He had him in other films.
Yeah,
And this, I mean, Empire Loves Now, come on. And then in this one, it just wasn't clicking. Terry Garr as well. Yeah, there's a lot of times where I'm like, I don't know what is going on here. Like, are they trying to be so over the top and campy and absurd with it, and lean into the comedy aspects?
I couldn't tell.
And I couldn't tell. Like, there's sometimes where I'm like, no, I think we're supposed to be like, this is a dramatic moment. We're supposed to be feeling for them here. And so yeah, I think something got away from them. Certainly in the writing is where it started, but in
Yeah,
the direction of the performances as well, it was just not coming together, not clicking.
which is sad because I love Terry Garr. She's great. Just doesn't
But
work in this.
in this one, yeah, it was
None of it works.
not a great
None of it
performance.
works.
So yeah,
But the
that's a big
sets,
issue.
oh my god, dude! The dance in the martini glass looks awesome. The
Yes.
when Natasha Kinski is on the high wire and she's doing like a dance on the high wire and he's conducting the car horns and then she zip
Yes,
lines
that's
down to him.
so like inventive
Or like
visually. Like,
when she stands up on the 76 ball and just like rolls her way down the hill. It's just so cute and funny.
yeah. So
She's just
yeah,
doing a
everything you
circus
mentioned there
thing.
was great. Uh, even their, I think it was around their first encounter or something like that, where he's just by this like blue face, basically, it's just lit up with LED lights and
Yeah, and it
everything.
turns into her.
Like that was great, fantastic. He's got such great ideas for visuals, and he was able to execute them so well throughout this film. So on that front, I was never bored or disengaged because the imagery was so vibrant and so just lush. But as you said, if we don't care about the characters, we don't like them together, we're not rooting for them to be together, then a lot of it is just us waiting for the inevitable to happen, while we get some eye candy in the
Yeah.
form of Coppola and his cinematographer's great images. It doesn't work. The other thing is the musical aspect. So this whole
Yeah.
thing, is meant to be a musical, but it's all non-diegetic songs that are being sung by like two performers, and their voices are great.
I
I
love the
enjoyed listening to it.
songs. I just
They
don't
were nice.
really. I just don't really. It's because I don't care about the movie that they don't stand out to me. But I think the songs are written well. Like Tom Waits is a good singer songwriter.
Hmm.
I just because I don't give a shit about what's going on. Naturally, I don't give a shit that there's music going on as well.
Yeah,
Like the music isn't the thing that's saving the movie, unfortunately.
agreed. And I just wonder what the thinking was of having, again, this like musical romance, but then choosing not to have the actual characters that are in the musical being the ones singing the songs. Like
I think it
it
would
just
have
doesn't
worked
seem right.
had Tom Waits and the other singer been in the movie as actors just to sing like a Greek chorus almost. I think that would have worked better. And you don't even have to have the actors like Frederick Forrest or Terry Garr. You don't even have to have them sing at all or any of the other characters sing. But if you have Tom Waits on screen singing and Crystal Gale on screen singing, I think it would have just stuck the landing. And they could have just like been characters that transcend the concept of time and space within the film and can just travel wherever they want to, like a musical does, and sing these musical numbers while the other characters continue the actual time and space storyline going on.
Yeah.
Much like in Cabaret, Michael Gray is the performer, and he's performing with Liza Minnelli, of course. And Liza Minnelli is actually in the story, but Joel Gray isn't really in the story of Cabaret. He's there to perform the songs as the story's going on. He is quite literally the MC of the movie or
Hmm.
play, I guess, whatever you want to say. Joel Gray. Why did I say Michael Gray? I'm sorry.
But yeah, that I think that would have worked better. Or again, just something to like have the actual characters be the ones that are expressing their emotions through the songs, rather than just having them look out longingly as someone else is singing their exact thoughts over them. It just, I don't know, it didn't quite work for me to go at it that angle. But yeah, again, there were bigger issues at play that stopped them. But again, the visuals so
Oh, it
good.
looks so
When he
good.
did the like the projection behind Frederick Forrest and his friend, when they're just like talking about right after the breakup, and then it's Franny and her
Mm.
friends in their
That's
apartments, and it's just
the
playing behind them.
overlay. That's the set within a set overlay that he's doing
Yeah,
there. It's
she's
fantastic, and
gorgeous.
he dims the lights on the front scene and brings up the lights on the back scene, and there's like a little veil of a sheet between the two scenes. Looks fantastic. When was the last time you saw a good overlay in a movie? You know, people don't do that anymore. People don't like to call attention to their filmmaking anymore
They
like they
don't.
used to.
Literally, it was Multiverse of Madness. It was Sam Raimi.
There was an overlay in that.
Um,
I
during the
guess probably
whole
yeah. At
his
some point, yeah.
tripping out scene, when
Yeah.
the image starts warping, and then he goes into that whole.
I suppose you're right. The one that I was thinking of was the favorite at the very end with she's rubbing Olivia Colman's feet and it overlays with the rabbits roaming
Mm,
around. I think that's a really strong overlay that always stuck with me. But you just don't see him anymore, man. And I just never knew Coppola liked them that goddamn much.
dude, they are his bread and butter. He can't get enough of them,
And it
and he's
works. He's
he's the
really
king.
fucking
He
good at it.
does. Yeah, he
It
knows how
makes
to
me
do it.
like overlays. Like I don't think I liked them that much before. I thought they were okay, but now I really like because he's like paper mache crafting the image that he wants with the different images that he has. Just like cutting and pasting, which we'll get to in Dracula. I think he does. There's a couple examples he does it really, really well with the overlays. But I mean, he's just really good. And Apocalypse Now, of course. We talked about the overlays in the last episode.
Mhm.
Insane.
Indeed. So yeah, always from Apocalypse Now, he's the one that like introduced me to the power, the magic of them. So I've always had fondness for them. But yeah, seeing each of his films just littered with these overlays. But again, they're always so well done. I'm like, yeah, this technique, it's gone out of style, but it needs to come back. We need a visionary. So Megalopolis, which already from the trailer, there were plenty that I saw in there. There's gonna be
It's
so
gonna be
many
awesome.
overlays, so many cross dissolves. It's gonna be crazy. Gonna
It's
love it.
gonna be great.
Yeah. All right. For one from the heart, how many trips to Bora Bora out of 5?
I'm giving it 1.5.
Oh my god, that's hardcore.
I was
Even with
just
the
so
visual
fucking
style,
bored, dude. Yeah,
the
the one and a
visuals.
half is entirely there for the visuals. If it looked like shit, it'd be a 0.
That's crazy.
It's terrible.
Wow. Wow.
There is nothing redemptive about the story. Why do they end up together? Why the fuck do they end up together? They suck. They suck as a couple. I hate both of them individually. I hate both of them together. Why do they end up together? It doesn't make sense.
Because he's saying, "You are my sunshine."
No, that's so dumb. The shot though, towards the end where he's like trying to get into his car and it's pouring rain and the
The
plane takes
plane
off right
flies
behind
over.
him.
Oh,
Great shot.
oh.
I just wish I cared. If I cared, it'd be an amazing shot. I just didn't
Yeah.
care. Great shot though. Also, does that mean she flew all the way to Bora Bora from Las
And then
Vegas
flew back.
and then went, no, this is
Round
wrong, and then
trip
flew
around.
all the way back? So she's been on a plane for like 20 hours.
Yeah.
Sucks to be
It
her.
is. It is absurd. I'm giving it 2.5
That's
trips
way
out of
too high.
5. But again, yeah, that's crazy to me. The visuals, I thought would have carried it much more. I mean, that is the reason to watch this film. But
I'll be honest with you. Now that we're transitioning, I liked most of the visuals in Dracula a little more than One for the Heart,
really,
which we can now talk about. It's now been 10 years since One from the Heart. They are 10 years apart, and I have the same criticisms and the same compliments for both of these movies. I mean, as a filmmaker, 10 years later, he still got it. He's still got it, man. I mean, oh
oh
my
yeah,
god, it looks incredible. His dedication to the stylism is great. My only qualm with the stylism, and I said this to you after we had watched the movie, is I think he's a little inconsistent with how he does his stylism. I think it changes quite a bit from scene to scene and is a little jarring at times. But overall, I think for a lot of it, it does work. I think it does look great. I think a lot of the early shots in the movie where he's like setting the tone work really, really well. I think a lot of the special effects work really, really well. I just don't care about any of these characters. I don't care if they live or if they die. I don't care about Dracula himself.
mm-hmm.
I don't fucking care. But again, like One from the Heart, if I did care, if it had been written for me to care about these characters, this would be an amazing movie. It'd be awesome. It'd be great. Just doesn't quite get me there. And that sucks because it looks awesome. There's many shots that I can list off right now that I think are fantastic. I think the shot in the beginning of the movie where he is still a Romanian prince and he is fighting the enemies, and you have the shadows projected onto the background of him fighting against the big black like ground and the big red sky, and he's fighting those enemies. Awesome.
That was great. What did you think of when he stabbed the guy with a spear and then just started shaking him around?
Awesome, dude. He's the impaler. He impales him and he just shakes him. It's so good. I think all of the shadow work they do works really, really well, where you have Gary Oldman standing in the frame and then somebody else is projecting the shadow, and then the shadow moves and Gary Oldman's on the other side of the frame. I think that's a great shot. I think the shot that is an overlay where Keanu Reeves is on his way to the castle, and it's the shot of him writing his note, and then at the top of the frame is once again a red sky, much like the battle scene, but then you have the very black train crossing over.
Mm-hmm.
I think that looks fantastic. I think the shot of the man-bat version of Gary Oldman where he is having sex with the one character very far in the background, I think it looks fucking sick, dude. I think it looks awesome because it's just so unexpected. The makeup is done so. It reminds me a lot of in American Werewolf. You've never seen American Werewolf in London?
No.
There are shots in that where they don't want you to see the werewolf up close, so they shoot it from very, very far away. But it makes it feel jarring because of how small it is. It's like you're not up close. You can't see what's wrong with the image. You can't see the person under the makeup and whatnot. So it still looks animalistic, like it is a real animal. And that's how I feel looking at this very far away thing of Gary Oldman is the man bat thing, is he looks very animalistic because of how far away it is. And he's just fucking the shit out of her. And I think it worked. Yeah. It's a great shot.
I think some of the shots in there, like the rats crawling along the support beam upside down, it was a great touch. Love that. Again, just the world building aspect of it, very unsettling. As you mentioned, like those shadows.
The shot where he turns into rats.
That goes into
so
the dark,
hard.
The red eyes leaving behind, and then
they flip on the lights, and he is just rats, and the rats immediately collapse. Oh, dude, that goes so hard.
That was incredible. Again, you mentioned like all the overlays there, the cross dissolves that he does, a lot of like vampire bites transitioning into other things, like the wolf eyes. A lot of eye overlays, like when it was the train or the cart or whatever it was.
Oh,
it was the cart when he was first coming up. And it was just the eyes, Dracula's eyes.
In the sky, yeah. It looks awesome. Indeed. There's great things in here that I think work really, really well.
And I think it does production design too, like the
looks
Gothic,
fantastic.
Victorian Gothic aesthetic, all that. Transylvania, like it looks great. The costumes look great. Again, Dracula's hairdo, very memorable, very out there.
I think the weakest parts is that there's like 15 different looks to Dracula. He just keeps changing his appearance constantly.
And for what reason? So, full disclosure,
know.
I think we do have to mention, we did not have the greatest viewing experience. We did watch it together.
That's true.
I was over at your place. You had the disc for it. First of all, the sound. I don't know what was going on with the sound. You cranked that volume up all the way.
It was at volume max and it was still quiet, which is very upsetting. Like, this would have been a much better movie had we been blasting the shit out of it.
Yeah, we needed that surround sound. I literally had to move closer because...
I think it has to be a problem with the DVD because I don't have issues like that with other DVDs.
Yeah.
The sound design on the DVD specifically must just be tuned up. Maybe there's a setting I should have looked at to change it. Maybe it was on like a surround sound setting and it shouldn't have been. I don't know, but something about that DVD was fucked up, and it was just playing the whole thing really, really quiet. It was a Blu-ray. I don't know.
Yeah, and I was trying to like the beginning part of the film. I was so locked in of just trying to understand what they're saying, like deciphering them, reading lips. That I was like not.
We should have put the subtitles in real quick,
real early. Yeah, because again, I got closer and it was kind of working, but then they're talking in accents. They're going crazy with it. I mean, Gary Oldman,
Romanians, man,
Romanian accent, yeah. And I'm like, I need to try and
Anthony Hopkins and his weird German accent.
Yeah, and then there was also hustling and bustling and whatnot around the house. So It was even harder to fully
It's a bit of noisy
be locked
household,
in.
yeah.
Yeah. So that definitely had an effect on the experience. Again, visually, that part I just had to have my eyes on the screen for that, and everything was coming through crystal clear. But some of the plot elements, like again, I just never understood why he was having so many different looks. Like what triggered
Yeah.
that? Was it relating to like the time of the month, like the full moon? Like was that in play?
I
Was
don't
it
know. He has his
the
old man look. He has his young Romanian prince look. He has his young modern day look. He has his man bat look where he's having sex with a one woman.
which also I did not know. So that's a man bat thing. I was like, is he a werewolf? Like, is werewolves also
I think
part
he's
of the
supposed to be like a man bat. Like he's like a bat the size of a man. But then he has
interesting?
the skinned Nosferatu bat look towards the end of the
Yes.
movie for no reason. That's the one where I'm like, why did you even change them? Because you already established that when he becomes like a beast, he's full of hair and covered in hair and
Hmm.
whatnot. But now he's completely shaved to look like Nosferatu, which would have been fine if you had committed to that look earlier. Like it's one thing to have an old look and then he drinks blood and becomes youthful again. That's fine. And it's another thing
Hmm.
to go to a bat looking thing. That's also fine. But then after those three looks, you have like six other looks on him. Different versions of the man bat, skinned man bat, different versions of his human form.
Yeah.
I just don't. I wish they had committed to like three looks and just stayed that way. And then just
Hmm.
change the costumes around it.
Yeah. Because
It's definitely
that
a choice.
that didn't make sense, and I didn't know if that was like a failure of the film or just of again our viewing experience and how it was going that we couldn't get that necessary information. Same with the other stuff with Winona Ryder. Like, so is she or isn't she the wife from the beginning? Like, is that a thing? Like, she was reincarnated, or she just looked close enough like her that Dracula was like, okay, she's the one. I've been waiting all this time. I'm gonna be with her. I
I
was like,
don't know.
I don't get that. And then she was like a part of it, and I was like, is that because when he initially did something to her that I don't know messes up something and the pheromones and whatever, and that's why she's down with it, or was it a
Yeah,
true love
it
thing
doesn't
of
even.
she is reincarnated and then she remembers her love for him? I was like, why is she indulging in this? Like,
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense.
and it's based on the Dracula book, which is 160,000 words, which is long, but it's not like War and Peace length or something else like that. So, like to trim it down to a 2 hour movie, it can be done, but I feel
Hmm.
like they lose all semblance of what the actual plot is of the book and they're just trying to go for that deeper meaning of like what a toxic like vampiric relationship would be like between a man and his victim, like
Hmm.
that basic fundamental idea of what a vampire is, and they're trying to hone in on that feeling, but they aren't discarding the Bram Stoker plot completely. Instead they are just shredding it down to its bare bones to just act as like the base of the film so they can just do full symbolism work throughout the rest of it, and it just doesn't work because you can't have the bare bones of a plot because now I want the rest of it. I want the
Yeah.
rest of the movie to understand what's going on because I'm trying to become invested in it. Had it just been Gary Oldman as a vampire and you cut out all of the like details and the world building of like in the rules of what it is to be a vampire, and it just had been him trying to prey on Winona Ryder for 2 hours, it would have made like no sense as plot and it would have been way better
Hmm.
because it would have just been about like it would have been like Phantom Thread. It would have been just what it is to be that kind of a person preying on another person.
Yeah. I have not read Dracula.
Me
Not
neither.
very well versed in, vampire media and things like that. So, yeah, I don't know how faithful it was or wasn't, but that to me just seemed odd. Again, like they're going across Europe, and there's times where he's going back to heal or rest or something like that. And I was like, I don't know how this is coming into play. So yeah, I think if they had just gone at it from a different angle, and it's Keanu Reeves and Winona Ryder going to the castle together, and then we see that slow preying upon her, I think that maybe it would have worked out, but again, it wouldn't have been as faithful, I guess, to Dracula. I'm
That would
assuming
have
it
just been
is
pretty much
similar to what it is.
Nosferatu at that point.
Yeah,
Which is
I
what
guess so.
Nosferatu is. Nosferatu is taking that Dracula plot and just cutting it down to that fundamental. There is a vampire. He's preying on a young woman. That's the story. There is no rules about what it means to be a vampire. There is no wives of Dracula that are sucking on uh, Keanu Reeves' nipples.
Yeah. Of all
There's none of
was there
that
a nipple
craziness.
transition in this? Or,
Transition? I don't know, but
yeah.
there's a moment where she's like one of the wives just starts sucking on his nipple.
Yes, but I was just like, of the amount of transitions, again, like going from the vampire bite to the wolf's eyes, I was
Mm.
surprised he didn't just have a transition of like a nipple, like a close up on the nipple going to the moon or the sun or something like that.
That'd be
Because he
cool.
was right on the cusp of it. This is a horny movie.
Yeah, it
Man
is.
was going in. He was like, "Oh, Dracula is like a sexual metaphor. Bet we're going all in.
Which I
Vampire
think is a
orgies,
strong and good
blood
choice. I
sucking."
think it works. And I think it would work better if the plot was better.
Yeah, I agree.
It could have
Yeah,
been a horny vampire movie. I mean, vampires have always been a horny. The sexual nature of vampirism is always
yes,
present in pop culture, regardless.
indeed.
Twilight, Interview with the Vampire, even What We Do in the Shadows, all of it.
True
The
Blood,
inherent sexuality of it is clear, and
indeed.
this is no exception.
Yeah,
We'll see how Nosferatu handles it later this year.
indeed. Anthony Hopkins was having fun in this movie.
Yeah, he was. He
I
was having a
was,
good fucking time.
I was having fun watching him have fun. It was
It was
great.
delightful. Yeah, this is pre Silence of the Lambs too, so he's just having a good fucking time.
Hmm.
I love him. He's great.
So yeah,
We're
yeah.
going
Again,
to cut off her head and stake her heart.
so it's very stylish, but very silly. Not always in good ways. Again, there's a lot of camp in here, which is fun, but a lot of it is like, how intentional was that? We didn't really want to go for another take of Keanu Reeves trying to say things in a British accent. Um, so in
We
that,
didn't want to give Keanu Reeves any chance to give any kind of like emotional reaction to the things he's seeing in the castle.
yeah,
Dude, when he's looking out the window and this is like after he's met the Count and he's very eccentric and creepy, but he's not like supernatural in any way. And he goes and he looks at the window and he sees the Count crawling on the wall, defying the laws of physics like a spider, and it just cuts
yes,
back to Keanu Reeves and just no expression. No look of shock. And
dude,
he's
that's
writing
passion.
back. He goes back and he's writing to Winona Ryder in his journal, and he's going, "I think there may be something afoot here, my darling. Something seems dark in this world." And I'm going, "Yeah, you saw him crawl on the wall. Hey, what the fuck are you talking about?" I don't know why he included that shot. It took me completely out of it. It makes
Yeah,
him seem just like such a fucking idiot. And then there's like the montage of him being devoured by the wives, and he's like, "They're sucking my blood, and I'm going to try to make one last effort to leave." And he's just like on the bed. He's just no expression once again. No
yeah,
look of shock or fear or anger or anything.
yeah. We love that Keanu has found his lane. Incredible action star, but yeah, not not the best emoter in the game. Um, and then there's also just parts, again, partly because I just wasn't following elements of the plot. I don't know if, again, is because it was not established or we weren't able to pick up on it because of sound issues and other things like that. But it just felt a bit sluggish in other areas, like
Yeah,
especially as
for
we've
sure.
gone later on, and then all these other characters are thrown in, and Keanu's back in the midst, but now with white hair for some reason. I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. So
Yeah,
yeah, towards the end, I was like nodding off during their whole fight
yeah,
scene, and the sun was coming up, and we were trying to beat them before it happens.
yeah. Also,
So
they say that he can exist in the sun at the very beginning of the movie, and he does go out in daytime quite frequently.
yes,
But then at the
yeah,
very end, he's racing to get back to the castle before the sunrise or before the sunset. I don't know. I don't know what the race is to get back to the. I mean, they destroyed his boxes of dirt, which for
yes,
some reason he needed to exist. He needed the dirt of the castle.
because he kept transporting, yeah, in the dirt because it regenerates him or heals him or something.
I just don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
it
understand
doesn't
what the
quite make
purpose
sense.
of the dirt was. I don't understand what the purpose of destroying the dirt was. It has something to do with his life force. And I guarantee you in the book, it's explained perfectly. I guarantee you in the book, it just makes sense. They just
Hmm.
chose not to include that explanation, at least not clearly, in the movie. But dude, the
Indeed,
shot of him busting out of the box, great. Looks
indeed.
awesome. I mean, this interpretation of Dracula is really cool. Gary Oldman's really, really good.
And
And
him and his like young Victorian or Romanian prince type thing, in that top hat and those
yeah,
shades,
looks awesome.
looks so cool,
Yeah, he does.
incredible.
He's a great choice for this role. It's a great interpretation of the character. I think Dracula is really, really cool in this and very, very scary, very, very threatening. I just wish I cared. I wish I
Yeah,
understood and I wish I cared.
don't we all? Don't we all? All right, how many blue infernos out of 5?
I'm going to give it 2.5.
I'm giving it a 2. So we're swapping on the scales here.
Yep.
We'll see where we land for Youth Without Youth, 2007.
15 years later.
Yes. So
15
15
years
years
after
after Dracula,
Dracula.
10 years after his most recent film before that, The
Yeah.
Rainmaker. So, yeah, we got Tim Roth, Bruno Ganz, Alexandra Maria Lara, Andre Henneke, written by Coppola, based on a book by Mircea Eliade. Butchered that name, I'm sure. But
A
not as bad as he
Romanian
butchered this
writer.
book, because this sucked. It was,
Let me say, it's been 15 years since Dracula. It
yes.
has now been 25 years since One from the Heart.
Oh my, yeah.
As a filmmaker, he still got it. I mean,
Oh, yes, sir.
dude, it's shot great. Still, it looks fantastic. I mean, it's one of the best looking movies I've seen of the 21st century. Like the overlays in the beginning work really, really well. I think the only shots that I thought looked objectively not good were at the end when it's him, Tim Roth, and Alexandra Maria Lara on the balcony, and it's obviously a green screen. That looks like shit. But other than that, it looks really, really good. I think the shots of the characters that are completely sideways, where their whole body is filling the frame sideways, I think that looks
Mm,
cool. I think a lot of the upside down shots work really, really well. I think the
agreed.
lighting is fantastic in this movie. It like reminds me of the darkly lit sets of the Godfather series, which I think
Mm,
is very, very appealing for this aesthetic of time period. I think Tim Roth is trying his best, and I think it's an interesting character he's having to play here. But oh my god, this movie was bad. Oh my god, it was
yeah,
boring. It was only
100%.
good to look at, much like the other two movies,
And
which
I'll be
is really,
honest,
really unfortunate.
I don't even agree that much on the visual stuff.
No, dude,
I
it
think
looks
again,
great.
there's great use of like overlays, very compelling compositions he has in there. The shot of Tim Roth just like on the bed, naked, and then you have in the mirror his like counterpart, and they're just like talking to each other, having that conversation. And of course, he gets up and walks out of frame. I think that's great. Again, there's a lot of those elements throughout here. Um, I think One from the Heart and Dracula by far blow it away. Um, and then
I think
yeah,
Youth
the
Without
earlier
Youth. I
films
think
in the
if
'70s for
you
sure.
went and rewatched this movie, which you probably never will, I think if you did with the intention of like looking at the composition and the contrast in the shots, I think you would find a deeper appreciation of it. And I think it would. I think the colors pop really, really well, but if he had desaturated and made it black and white, I think it would stand out even more because the contrast has to do with the lighting. You would see more of the form of what he's trying to go for in these shots, and they just look they're framed so well and they're lit so well. I love the shot. It's the scene where he's with the woman that's seducing him now that he's a young man, and they
Hmm.
have a whole long seduction scene, and he's like kissing her, and she's in lingerie, and he's kissing down her body towards her nether regions, and as he's getting lower, he sees on the camera sees on her lingerie is stitched the swastika. I think that goes so hard.
Swastika lingerie, crazy.
I
And that
think that's so
man
hard.
kept going.
It's a great reveal.
He saw it at one point,
Yeah, he
and then he
did.
was like, "We don't stop."
Yeah,
That's crazy.
we're in,
Truly
boys.
insane.
He's been an old man for so long.
I guess so. It was like nothing will stop me now.
Yeah. Do you
So,
understand what this movie is? Like, do you understand what it's trying to say?
Dylan, I'm gonna be so real with you. I think I slept through the last 30 minutes of it or
I
20 minutes
don't
or
blame
something
you,
like that.
dude. I don't
I
blame you at
really,
all.
because I was watching it for the whole time and I was like kind of engaged, and there's interesting elements to it. Like I thought for a moment we were going to be getting into a war thriller or like an espionage thriller of the
Hmm.
Nazis are trying to get him because he's got these psychic powers, but he's got to fend them off and all that.
The
And that
psychic
just,
powers are so stupid.
which is,
It's
yeah,
such a stupid
the
reveal.
premise of it is absurd.
I will
But then
say
they
though,
don't go with that at all. Like they just quickly, the war's over and he didn't really have a part in it, and we just continue on, and now he's in the 50s and looking back, and I'm like, why did we go through
yeah.
that? Like, what was the point here?
It's crazy how frequently this movie will do something really, really stupid and then almost immediately do something that I think ends up being really, really cool.
Mm,
Like, there's the scene where he's learning about his psychic powers, which don't even really come back up later in the movie. It's only prevalent for like 10 minutes of the film. But he's learning about it and that he can like take a book and pass it over in front of his face and read the whole thing in a go. And they like it like lights up
it
a light
illuminates
on the
him. Yeah.
book to show that he's reading it. And it just looks dumb. It looks like a comic book thing. It's really, really stupid. But then it follows that up almost immediately with him being in the casino to supplement his income. And he like looks at the table and it illuminates the 11 and he places the chips on it and he wins, which is a cool thing that they added in there. But it's also stupid that he says, I did only enough to make enough, but not arouse any suspicion. But he puts chips on every corner of the 11 and then the center of the 11. And it lands on 11, which is the most obvious way to cheat. Like, it's obvious, like you knew it was going to land on 11 somehow. You put all of your money on 11 to win. That's insane.
Yeah.
And then
But
another example is in the scene where he's getting hunted down by the Nazi doctor who's trying to take him away. And the woman interferes and she's like, no, I love him or whatever. Like, run away, which is stupid. Like, I don't know anything about her character. It doesn't make any sense. And she like turns around while the doctor has a gun. She's like, you have to run. And he just shoots her in the back and she just falls to the ground. It's just pointless. It doesn't make any fucking sense. It's
yeah,
stupid. But then
stupid.
he immediately follows it up with the cool shots of like him making. It's kind of stupid that he has psychic powers. I think it's really fucking stupid. But the shot itself of him raising the gun to his head and making the Nazi shoot
You
himself in the
see it in
head.
the shadow. Yeah.
Yeah,
That
I
was
think
good.
it's
That was
shot really
cooking.
well. It's cool. Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, you're right. Those were things, because again, I did see those parts for sure,
Yeah,
but
you
they
did.
had fallen out of my memory. But those are two. The casino scene, I think, is a good scene overall. And then
Matt
that
Damon showing up
moment,
is really funny.
it was. I did not expect him coming in there, and I was like,
He's
nice,
only in the one scene. His character doesn't even have a name. It's just a guy.
crazy. But so and then yeah, that moment of in the shadow, yeah, we just see on the wall the
Yeah.
gun turning around and then popping that guy in the face. So I did think those moments were compelling. I do
In
remember
the
as well.
beginning.
There's a day for night scene where they're like on the beach and she was
Uh-huh.
trying to drown herself or something like that, and he was out there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Um,
It's just like
and
bright blue, like
yeah, it was just like I
fully
was like
blue
they
lit.
don't
Yeah.
even like this is just ridiculous. It was
Which I
literally just
mean,
they put a they did a blue tint in
they did the
post, and that
same
was
thing
it.
in Mad Max Fury Road. Like, it's fine. I think
I
it's
mean, they did,
fine.
but that one was more heavily stylized throughout the
Sure.
whole thing, and you buy it
Sure.
because literally that movie is just like orange and blue, so
Yeah.
it just does a whole switch there of the color palette, so it works there. But this one, they were just trying to make it like night and not like a stylized way,
Yeah.
so that
But
one
dude,
stuck out to me.
in the beginning of the movie, like the first 6 minutes of it, it's like a normal drama. There's some overlays, but it's not really stylized. And Tim Roth is just an old ass Romanian man.
Yeah,
And he's like he has his cane, he's whittling along for quite a while. He's crossing the street. And then he gets struck by lightning. And I laughed
he gets
so fucking
lifted
hard,
up,
dude.
yeah, like
I
from
didn't
the
know what the
whale,
fuck happened.
and just
Dude, I laughed
levitates.
so hard. It's like he was ascending to heaven out of nowhere. It's so funny.
Yeah, that was something. All right.
It's just so
And
dumb.
and then yeah, you have them trying to like figure out, okay, how old is he? And that stuff was like kind of compelling, but just somewhere along the way, again, it was just like we're going through
It was
these
when he started to
emotions
get
of him.
psychic powers that it really lost me. And I was
Yeah,
like,
but
I
it's
just
like
don't
they
care.
could have it could have been fun, or at least if they wanted to go the other route of just like making it a very intellectual, philosophical sort of
Yeah.
experiment, they could have done that. And that's like kind of what he was going for. Like again, I really don't remember what happens towards the tail end of the film, but the
Yeah.
woman that he meets that also has the psychic powers, I'm assuming the goal is like, oh, his whole mission of trying to get to the bottom of
Yeah.
like the origin of language, like that becomes less important than actually connecting with this woman that they both have a
Yeah.
second chance at life. But
I think it's a
it's just
mistake.
so boring to get there. It was
Yeah.
like not very compelling with all
I
those.
think the important part of the movie is the relationship he has with that woman in the second half of the film. And I think it's
Mhm.
a mistake to spend that first half on him and then to spend the second half on her when the bulk of the movie could have been spent with them together and you learn about both of them as you go forward. So you start the movie with Tim Roth as a young man in 1950s Switzerland, wherever the fuck he is. He meets her, she gets struck by lightning. You know he's like a genius linguist. And then as you see their relationship develop, you learn more about his character and his background. And first off, just fucking get rid of his whole psychic powers completely because they're completely irrelevant after like there's like a brief period where it's relevant where you learn that he's a super fucking genius because he can read books instantly and can what's it called, like he like studies language like a
Mhm.
fucking genius. It's just irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant for the second half of the movie. You could just say he's a smart guy. He doesn't need psychic powers. He is a smart guy who just happened to also be struck by lightning, is now aging backwards, and she is advancing in age quickly. So that's like the contrast that you have there with the two characters. If you had made that the entire duration of the movie, I think that would have been more interesting. You're learning about them at the same time. You're revealing things about each other back and forth. It becomes more compelling that way. You don't have the weird first half of the movie where you just don't really care about what's going on because it just doesn't make any sense. And I think if you'd started the movie with God, I don't know what would I do to fix this? If I was a ghost writer who's handed the
Just
script, what
call
would I
up
do?
Coppola and be like, "Here's how you should have done it." Okay, you can still
Just
do a revised cut.
because I
You got nothing
think
going on.
I think the idea of the film is solid. Dude, he shot like 162 hours worth of material for this movie.
That's crazy. I did see that there was like various different runtimes. They brought Walter Murch on to cut it down into the 2 hours.
It's insane.
So, Youth Without Youth Redux coming soon.
No.
We'll get.
God, no. But like if you had maybe started the movie with him just being like an old Romanian man in the tavern or the Cafe Select, wherever he is at the end of the movie, and then you cut to him being a young man in Switzerland, and then progress the movie, you learn more and more about them, and then you end with him being a young man going into Cafe Select, knowing that he has aged backwards, and then you can age him up again rapidly like you do at the end of the movie for no reason, and
That's what
then have him
happened.
die. You didn't know
They
you
age
didn't
him
even
back
see
up.
the end of the movie.
Again, I can't remember. And
So the
again, there
end of
were
the movie
portions I just
is
don't remember, but yeah, I think I may have fully nodded off at
the end
that
of the
point.
movie is he has left. He is with the girl whose name I don't even fucking remember. She is aging forward rapidly, like she's getting older at the same time he's getting younger, kind of like Benjamin Button in a way. And he, for some reason, thinks that his presence is making her age forward, and he wants to stay there, or his double. Also, get rid of the double. What the fuck is that? It doesn't even
Yeah,
make any
I don't know
sense.
what's going on there.
Cut that out. But his double is trying
Put
to
a
get him to
rose in my
stay.
lap. See, I remember that one. Now put a
His
rose in my
double
hand.
wants him to stay so that he can uncover the origins of language, because as she's getting older, her double, which is just her past lives, I guess, is continuing to go backwards in time so that she is now speaking more and more ancient languages. And the double, Tim Roth's double, wants him to stay with her so that he can find the origin of language and uncover that
Yeah.
for his life's work to be complete.
Hmm.
And Tim Roth himself doesn't want to stay because he gets the idea in his head that if he does stay, that is the reason she's aging forward, though he can't prove it. He just feels like that is the reason, which is, I guess, a good enough excuse to get them to separate. But anyway, they part ways. She goes on her own. You find out that he like sees her at a train station or something, has a picture of her, and she is now a younger woman, again. She's no longer aging rapidly. She has a kid with somebody. She has like a whole life now. She's fine because she's not with him anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
he returns to Romania, his hometown, from like over 100 years ago, and he goes to Cafe Select. A lot of his older counterparts are still there. People who were young when he was old are now old, and they're there, and they're reminiscing with him because he's there. And there's a weird moment where it cuts. It cuts from one of his counterparts back to him, and now he's old again. And there's not really an explanation why. And he's interacting with him. He's old. And then all of a sudden, he grabs his mouth because it hurts, and he runs out. And when he runs out, his teeth have fallen out again, like they did in the beginning of the movie. And
Mm.
you get the idea that he's gotten older. And he runs away into the winter. And the hotel he's staying at, they call the bar because they're like trying to close up. They're waiting for him to get home. They're like, "Hey, where is he?" And the bar guy is like, "Hey," or the Cafe Select guy is like, "He was here. He was alone for a while, and then he ran out holding his mouth." So like the whole thing in the cafe was an illusion, I guess, or something. But he's still aging rapidly forward for some reason. And the end of the movie is that these people in Romania are walking around in the winter, and they come across his body. He's frozen to death. He's laying on
Nice.
the grass, and it's saying, "Where will you put the third rose?" And you didn't see the shot of the rose appearing in his hand at the very end.
I don't think so.
So the very end of the movie is just a shot of his body, and his hand is laying out, and it's empty. And then a rose appears in his hand, but it's a CGI rose, and it doesn't crossfade into the shot like you think it would. It goes bloop and like expands from nothing into something like clip art. It looks hilarious. It looks so bad. It could have just faded in, and it would have looked so much better. But it goes bloop and just like plops in, like spawns. It spawns into his hand like a video game, and then
Nice.
the movie fades to black except for the rose, and the rose is on a black screen. And this is the end, which I didn't even get the rose shit. So I think there's
Yeah.
just so much going on in this movie that he's trying to tackle, which I don't think is inherently like the things he's trying to say. I understand. He's talking about language and how our different languages are how we perceive the world, and how he's trying to convey perception with a neutral language and whatnot. How he's trying to understand the origins of language so that perception can be completely defined and whatnot. I think these are all interesting things to talk about. There's just so much on the sides that doesn't fucking matter that you could cut out. He doesn't need to have like weird psychokinetic powers. He doesn't need to age up again at the end for no fucking reason. I don't get it. It is like it is a hat on a hat on a hat on a hat. And it is pretentious beyond belief when it could be more straightforward.
No, not pretentious. That's
Oh,
the worst fear.
it is the worst fear, but he has done it. Dude, he's done it. He's made a very
No.
pretentious film here, which is upsetting. It's upsetting to see, but it's incredible. It's just he's so full of himself with making it. It's like he knew what he wanted. He read the book, whatever it was, and it's like he liked the basic idea and he was trying to reconstruct it, but he just wasn't sticking the landing on anything that he was choosing. It just sucks.
Yeah.
Because I think this could have been, of the three we have here, I think all three of them could have been really good movies.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the one, Youth Without Youth is one that disappoints me the most. A, because it was his big return from his soft retirement after The Rainmaker. And B, because this is like an interesting thing for Coppola to comment on at the age that he was at when he made the movie. He's this older man who is trying to commit to work, but also wants to commit to family time because he's an older gentleman. He's aging. He knows he only has so much time. He wants to finish his work. And Tim Roth's character is paralleled to that in a lot of ways. Tim Roth is aging in the movie. He wants to finish his work. At the beginning of the movie, he's never finished a book and he wants to finish his book. He's given a second chance. He's given youth again. He proceeds to dedicate his life to advancing that knowledge. And then he meets this woman who is, I don't know, a reincarnation of the love of his life or just looks like her, like Dracula. I don't fucking know. A lot of parallels between this and Dracula. They're both Romanian guys who fall in love with a woman who
It's
looks
true.
just like their lost love.
We
But
started with him dabbling with the Irish. We end with him dabbling with the Romanians.
yeah, and a little bit of Italian in the middle.
Indeed.
I just don't. I just wish. Who wrote this? Who it was written by Coppola himself,
Yes.
right? Only
Hmm.
him. Nobody else touched the script.
Indeed.
I wish somebody else had. I wish somebody else had just taken a look at it and gone, "Hey, you got some really great ideas here. Let me clean it up for you because it's kind of a mess right now and it doesn't make sense." But it's really great ideas. It just the whole structure of the film needs to change. A lot of the dialogue needs to change, but that's a through line in a lot of Coppola films where he is the solo writer on it. Except for Patton. Patton is solid.
He wasn't a solo writer on it though.
Oh, you're right. Well, there you go. I go back and forth on how I think of Coppola as a writer. You know, I'm just not because he's through and through every single movie I've seen of his. Great filmmaker, great director,
Yes.
solid, pretty usually a solid vision, sticks to it for the most part, and is nailing the way he's trying to tell the story. But the stories themselves aren't always great stories, and sometimes it's about him uh, just picking the wrong thing. Sometimes it's about him interpreting it wrong. Because a lot of his workers are adaptations of books or plays or things like that. And I don't know. I wish he could stick that landing more on a story. I wish he'd be given more stories that he cared about that were good on their own right that he could turn into an even greater film because he can do it. And he did that in the 70s 5 times,
Indeed. 5 times.
4 times.
Yeah. But, they count for an extra one because of how impressive that streak was.
Yeah.
And again, the conversation was all him. I mean, obviously the other ones
And
were
that's a
based on
great
book
one.
and had co-writers, but yeah, he got the job done with conversation, so he could do it. And again, I really like The Rain People. I like his writing approach there. We won't uh, get into that conversation, but yeah. So I think he definitely has, again, just strong ideas, and we see that through his visuals. He's able to convey them in compelling ways. It's just, yeah, here I think it got away from him. I think there were many ideas going on, but just not able to
It's too
put them
abstract.
together in a coherent way.
It's way too
Um,
abstract.
yeah. So, all right. I think the general theme of these post 70s works, again, his directorial style is very much clear and present and is the strong suit of these films, but the writing, the stories, they were just not up to par. We weren't able to connect with the characters quite nearly as much. The tone was a little wonkier in each of these, and just the overall consistency and coherency of them didn't quite deliver. But for Youth Without Youth, how many lightning strikes of youth out of 5?
I'm giving it 2.
Gotcha. I'm giving it a 1.5.
I don't think you should rate it since you didn't watch the last 30 minutes.
I
Not that
think
it would have saved your impression or anything,
I
but it's
think that
unfair to rank a movie without having seen the whole thing.
I think it indicates a little something if I am brought to sleep from watching it. And I didn't have a desire to go back and rewatch it. I did try and
That's
look
fair.
up the ending scenes to be like, let me at least see how it ended, but I couldn't even find any on YouTube.
I want you
Um,
to know that had I known you hadn't finished Youth Without Youth, I wouldn't have finished One from the Heart because I was watching it right before we were recording now, and I was coming close to the deadline of when we were going to start recording, and I had bought it on YouTube TV, so I'd
well,
rented
if
it
you
on
bought
YouTube
it,
TV.
yeah, you should have watched it. Youth
I
Without Youth
rented
was
it,
free.
and the last 30 minutes, I was like, I was not enjoying it. I was ready to just give up and just start recording, but thought we were going to have to talk about all 3 of them. So I threw that shit on 2 times speed and I just sped run the end of One from the
Well, I
Heart.
don't think you can fairly rank that then.
Dude, that
Two
shit was
times
crazy
speed.
on 2 times speed. Insane. It was the scene, the first scene that happened was when he goes to the hotel and steals Terry Garr,
Oh
and
yeah,
he has the physical comedy of him on the
the
roof falling on
hijinks.
top of things. Like he's going super fast, and then he falls to the roof, grabs her, runs down the stairs, throws her in the car, gets in the car, speeds off. He's going so fast. It's so funny.
He was, I mean, hey, he was on the clock. He had to get her quick. Um, that's crazy. Well, sorry for the disrespect to Coppola, Mr. Coppola, for one, not finishing your film, and then two, double speeding one of your other films. But
At least I finished it.
yeah, but come on, 2 times speed.
I think that's how it was meant to be watched.
Yeah, just all the songs
It
are
was
just
meant to
higher
be
tempo.
45 minutes long. They weren't high tempo because they're so slow tempo naturally that they're just a normal tempo on 2 times speed.
That's funny.
Anyway, that is all the time we have. If you'd like to give your thoughts on the show, you can email us at theboxofficeshowpod@gmail.com.
Our main title theme for the show is Sundown by Joseph McDade.
And if you like the show, please give us 5 stars on whatever podcast app you're listening to. And be sure to tune in next week. We are concluding the month of Coppola with our final review of his final movie so far, Megalopolis.
Oh, yes.
Go see
return.
Megalopolis and get excited, get hyped for our review. Have a great week.